everyone. Welcome to every fellow Toastmaster. Welcome to every guest here. How are you doing? Have you been enjoying the past speeches so far? Give me a hands up in the chat. Very nice. Well, I've got the honor to present a very special project tonight. And I am not alone. But before I will introduce you to my lovely panelists that will be supporting me on this discussion, I just want to quickly talk to you about what we will be talking about. So all of us have been in home office for the past year. We've all been impacted by COVID. But how will it look like in the future? Are we going to be back to the office? Are we going to be working hybrid? How does it look like? How could it look like? And what skills do we need in this new way of working? Things you may not have thought about before, but people, I can tell you, be prepared. So take notes, make sure you get the most out of the session right now, because it will hit us, it will affect us rather sooner than later. So before we start, I want to introduce you to my lovely panelists. I have three people, experts, so to speak, that are joining me for this panel. The first one I want to introduce is Laurel Robbins. Laurel is a business owner. She's not been affected much by COVID in the sense that she has been working at home before, but obviously her business got affected in one way or another because she works in tourism. Laurel, welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much, Daniela. Really looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. Now, the second panelist that is joining me today is Blaž Zupan. Blaž is an employee of a software company. They have about 3,000 employees worldwide, about 30 or so in Germany. Blaž is used to this new way of working, so to speak, because he has been working in the office and at home before COVID. However, he also has a few things to share with us. So welcome to this panel, Blaž.
Thanks, Daniela, and hi, everybody. Thank you Daniela, for involving me in the project, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. Me too. Now, and last but not least, to make it three in total, I have the lovely Leila Yelesoma. And Leila is an employee also of a fast-growing startup. They have about 700 employees Europe-wide. She's also a business owner. She has worked in the office before, so for her, COVID was a change. So let me welcome to our virtual panel, Leila.
Thank you, Daniela, and hi, everyone.
So guys, so happy to have you. Now, let's see, what can we share with the audience? Now, I want to know from you first, and I want to go with Blaž first. How do you think, Blaž, has COVID affected or impacted your daily work environment?
One thing that happened is that sorry, I have to go to the other room. One thing that has happened is that I go to the office less than I used to. So there was a time in between when I did not go to the office at all. And now I go, but less often. So yeah, just to sum up, let's say more home office than before. And especially I have a customer facing role, so I don't go to the customers anymore, but I do all the meetings remote.
Okay, thank you, Blaž. Now I'm curious about Laurel. Laurel, how has it impacted your daily work in the past year, so to speak?
So not so much as going to an office, because I've had a remote team before, but you may notice there's a desk about a meter behind me, which is empty right now, but it is usually full during the day. And that's been a bit of a challenge, having somebody else, when I'm used to having my own space, having somebody else so close that has a lot of meetings. So yeah, it's just been an interesting transition, but I definitely haven't been impacted by it as much as a lot of other people have.
Thank you for sharing, Laurel. Now, and I'm also curious to know from Leila, how has COVID changed your work, your daily routines and things?
Yeah, so for me, it has to do a lot with changing my daily routines. Or before, I had to commute basically every day. And this was it was a clear distinction between like work and life. And it was also a time for me to read books or listen to podcasts. So with the change of COVID, I had to also change and adapt my daily routines to make sure that I still keep this work-life balance and at the same time keep myself productive.
Yeah, so the routines is a very important topic. I think we all need to learn how to structure our days, and we'll go a little more deeper into that in a minute. But I want to talk about one very important point, and you haven't mentioned it before, and I'm going to start with Laurel before. It's about the social interactions, because I want to know from you, Laurel, first, how have your social interactions changed in the past year?
Yeah, so my social interactions, probably like a lot of people's, have really decreased. And being in the tourism industry, it's been very stressful. So then I found it got even smaller. And then because of that, I've noticed two different things from it. First of all, is I have no social skills anymore. When I go and try to talk with people, I'm like, oh, I can't even talk with people. So it's like, okay, I need to work on that. And then the second thing is, because I'm not really talking to as many people as I used to, I've really lost a lot of my creativity. And I think that's really important when you're self-employed. You know, when you don't have interactions with other colleagues, you really need to seek out people from different walks of life with different ideas. And that was part of the reason I joined Toastmasters, because I wanted to be around people that are really motivated, working on improving themselves, but not necessarily entrepreneurs, just to get the creative juices flowing. And so Toastmasters has been really wonderful for me for that.
I'm very happy to hear that. Glad we were able to contribute, and happy to be there in the future. Now, thank you so much for sharing. Now, Leila, you also mentioned something very important about your social interaction. You talked to me about that before, so do you want to share a little more what you're doing now and how you can make sure that people are still socially connected at work?
Yes, of course. So for me, since I was working before in the office, now with COVID, all of the things have moved to the virtual setup. And with that, it's a bit difficult to stay familiar with all the people, and kind of make your meetings also interesting in a way. So what we have done within the company I work in is not for all of the meetings, but for some of the meetings, we have this kind of interesting warm-ups that are going on before the meeting starts. So we are doing maybe a mini game, or even sometimes like even a dance or something like that, so that either everyone gets just relaxed and get comfortable within the meeting, or it's also a way for us to get to know each other a bit better.
And so, how do your coworkers, how do the teams perceive that? Is it something that people enjoy, or what is your experience on that?
Yeah, definitely. This is something that I think that a lot of people find very interesting, or maybe in some ways unusual in a way, because we do have our normally virtual events where we do this kind of things, but still it's very fun sometimes to just on a daily basis, let's say, just have a little, instead of a normal, let's say, coffee break that you do and you chat with your colleagues, you just have a little fun together.
Very nice. Well, I hope you can share afterwards a nice little idea for our Toastmaster community. So maybe we can even start something like that for our next meeting, right?
Sure, yeah.
Very cool. Now, let's go back to the whole notion around work-life balance, because what a lot of people I heard have struggled with in the past is how to maintain a work-life balance, because there are either people who are working nonstop, who start their work at 8 in the morning, who finish at 8 in the evening, because there is no physical barrier to say, look, I'm leaving the office, I go home and my day is done. Now, I want to know from you, and I want to start with Blaž first. Blaž, how do you maintain a healthy work-life balance in your home office? Because your home office is your home also. So what do you do, and what can you share with the audience that may help them to improve their actual situation?
I think that's a very good question, because what I noticed for myself is that if you do home office, at least in my case, I ended up working more, not less, at home. You can sleep a little bit longer because you don't have to commute to work and back, but still there's not such a clear cut between working and doing to say it in German, Feierabend. So this is just something that you have to what helped me is to write down the objectives of what I want to achieve that day. They might change during the day. You get new emails, But if you get your objectives done, then you can just call it a day and stop. Or if there is really nice weather outside, what I also did is that I went outside already during the day, especially when the days were short, and then I worked a little bit more in the evening. But I definitely tried to take time off.
So then when you look at the hybrid way of working, right? So right now we're all in the office, we're all working from home. So in the future, I think the model that will be mostly adapted by companies will be hybrid, meaning you work, from home a couple of days and you work in the office a couple of days. So how do you think would that benefit people or all of us if they, if we do both things, because we have to adapt, right? One day is going to look completely different to another day. So is that something you would be able to adapt for both work situations?
In my case, I did have a hybrid mode of working already before. So this is something that I'm used to, and this is something that I really like. Because now during the quarantine, I've noticed that it's very difficult for me to only work remotely. And also in the past, as I've worked in my previous companies only in the office, that I also didn't like too much. So I definitely like to meet my colleagues at least once every week. A few times is even better, but to also have the option to do home office. Both, I think, is the best.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your insights, Blaž. Now, I'm also interested to know from Laurel. Laurel, how do you think will a healthy work-life balance benefit our new way of working, so to speak?
I definitely think it's an adjustment, and I don't think there's one size fits all. I think people really need to experiment with different things and see what works for them. So one thing that really works for me is, I set my priorities for the day and do the first things first, but I decide in advance, I'm going to stop working at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. That for me is really helpful, and I stick with it even if I haven't gotten everything done. And the other thing I think that's really helpful to kind of help with those blurred lines is, if it's possible, have a clear defined working space. So I have an office. I only work in my office. I don't work at my kitchen table. I don't work in my living room. For somebody that if they need to work on their kitchen table, that's fine. But then, you turn off the computer, you put it in a different room, and maybe like your sofa is your safe place, like a no work zone. So I think it's just really trying to keep these clear boundaries, whatever it is that works for you, and trying different things. And the other thing I love to do is ask other people, like crowdsourcing, saying, hey, I'm struggling with this. Has anybody else had this? What else has worked for you? Because we're not in this alone. We're all going through it together.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, everyone is in the same situation, right? So asking for help is really something that some of us, I think, struggle, especially the overachievers here in the house. Please raise your hands. So, right, you have to be, I guess, when you're a business owner, you have to basically have that mindset, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to drive your business forward. But talking about habits, because you mentioned to have the routines and the structures, I want to know, and I'm happy to start with Blaž, what skill do you think we need, in this ever-changing environment? Like I said, we're now working at home. We will probably be going back to hybrid working space. One day we'll that, one day that. What do you think is a skill that we all need to adapt or learn if we don't know how this works already?
I think the skill that we need is discipline, because when you go to the office, it's very clear when you're there, especially if you share the office with some other colleagues, they're all working, so you work as well. This is, I remember from my studies, when I went to the library to study, because everybody was studying. You might check your phone, but you're gonna study. At home, that's not so easy. So at home, I think you really need the discipline to say, now I'm working, and afterwards I'll do something else. I'll go outside. So to really separate the time, or like Laura said, even the place of when and where you're working and when and where you're not.
Okay. Yeah, you're totally right. I agree with that. And I think we're all kind of struggling with some bits and pieces more than others, but I also agree that, when you have this just changing environment, like one day I'm at home and I can work focused and without interruptions, at least if you don't have family or kids running around. In the office, it's completely different because you get interrupted all the time. It's harder to focus. So I'm curious to know from Layla, actually. Layla, what do you think is the number one skill from your experience that we need to adapt or adopt, in the future, or even now going forward?
Yes. So I think that first of all, it is flexibility. It is about being able to adapt to these new environments and to the new way of working. But also it's about knowing how to prioritize and structure your work, whatever works best for you. So for example, in my case, I would, if I'm in the office, I would prefer to interact more with people. So in those days, maybe I would put more of the meetings that I need to have, workshops and so on. Whereas when I'm working from home, then I would prioritize more of the focus time. And this is the time where I need to really innovate or do some work without the interruptions.
So I'm curious, Leila, is that a skill that you've had to adapt, or has it come more natural to you to focus and structure yourself?
So about structuring, this is something that, was one of the things that I had to change definitely about my daily routines. But about the way of working, not so much, because my team is also remote. So in a way, I already had this way of working. So for me, it didn't change maybe as much as for some other people. But yes, it's definitely came down to the maybe routines, because at the moment I'm working completely from home. So in the future, I think it would be interesting to find this balance between working in this hybrid environment, as you said, from home and from office.
Okay, thank you. I think right now we are all kind of a little bit in limbo because the situation is improving, right? Places are opening up, but in terms of the office and how things will look like starting July on, we don't know yet. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the government decides and recommends for companies and how we are going to adapt, basically. But there's one more topic I want to address, and all of you that know me know that I'm super passionate about this, because I think that this is the foundation for your energy level, for your productivity, for your focus, and that is health. If we are not feeling healthy, if we are feeling sluggish and tired, and we don't like our own body because we eat too much junk food, then we're not going to be as productive and as focused. We don't have the mental clarity we need. So in which way do you think, and I'll start with Laurel, would a healthy lifestyle, maintaining a healthy lifestyle that includes exercise, healthy foods, or balanced diet, and also maintaining a positive mindset, how would this healthy lifestyle benefit your work ethic, your productivity? How does it benefit right now, and how may it benefit more in the future?
Right, I agree with you. I think it's a non-negotiable, whether you're working from home or whether you're working for somebody else. And for that, I'm a huge believer in morning routines. But I will be honest, my morning routine got a lot longer when I became self-employed. It's now 2 hours long every morning, because I want to be at my optimum so I can make the most money. When I had a job, I was motivated, but let's be honest, probably not as motivated, which doesn't sound so good, but that's the truth. So I have a 2-hour morning routine, which focuses on meditation. It focuses on health. I drink my green juice in the afternoon when I feel a little bit sluggish. It's all these little daily habits. And the thing that I find that is really, really helpful is on my phone, I have a little tracker and I get these pop-up reminders, because I'm like, oh, I'm sure I drank green juice 6 times this week. I'm like, oh, it was only 3. Okay. Because then you can't cheat. And so really holding yourself accountable for your goals, whatever those may be. So in my trackers, I have daily meditation, I have drink my green juice, I have my exercises. Having these things and really holding yourself accountable makes such a huge difference. And then also monitoring yourself. So the days that you don't do that, to see how you feel compared to the days that you do.
Now, this sounds amazing. And morning routine, I'm so passionate about a morning routine. I think I could now jump in and we could talk forever. But for those people who are not doing much, right, who roll out of bed and get their first cup of coffee and just feel very tired, and they may even jump on their laptop right away to work, what would be like a recommendation for those that want to start? Like, I know it's all about tiny habits, that help us to make sustainable changes. What would be the one thing that you would recommend to someone who's not doing much?
Just two things really quickly. First thing is do not check your phone. No social media. Do not check your emails or anything until 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. I personally don't check mine usually till 11 or 12, but depending on your work situation, because then you're giving your power to somebody else. You want to be in charge of your day. And the second thing would be 5-minute meditation. It doesn't have to take long. A lot of days I only meditate for 5 minutes, but it will totally change your life. And it literally takes 5 minutes.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Really, I'm really happy. If you can, after the panel, share like the meditation app you're using, please drop it in the chat for the audience. I know it's a personal preference, but any recommendation I think is always good for people. So thanks so much. I totally agree with you on that. Big fan of meditation. It really helps you to, to clear your head and really start from fresh, right? Every day is a new day. And yeah, really happy. Thanks so much for sharing. And the last person I want to ask is Blaž. Blaž, what is your experience on healthy lifestyle?
I also have a meditation app. I have the one called Waking Up, but I haven't been using it much lately. So I'll talk about other stuff more. So regardless of whether I'm in the office or I'm at home, what I do, that's my whole morning routine, is that I take a cold shower. And by cold, I mean very cold. So you just put it totally to the right. And you are guaranteed to wake up. If the water is cold enough, there is no way that you will still be sleeping when you get out of that shower. You can do first warm and then cold, just at least end with a very cold shower and you will be awake. The second thing, and this is something I started doing now during the pandemic, is I had a public transport ticket before because I recently went into the city, into the office. And when my office was closed, I just canceled it. And if I went somewhere, I went with the bike. Now I am going again to the office a few times a week, and I still don't have the ticket. I just continued going with the bike. And I think this is also a very healthy thing to do because it's 25 minutes in one direction, so 50 minutes per day. And it is also something that wakes you up more. It gets you active. It's much different than just waking up and sitting behind a desk and starting to work. So these two things I would really recommend. Use your bike. You have to get to work anyway if you don't live too far away, and cold shower.
Oh my God, I love both things. I love my cold shower. So I have a question for you, actually. Would you mind jumping into the Icepack with me one morning? Because I really wanted to try it out. I see people doing that, taking a dip.
But you mean in winter, right?
No, in summer.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, I do this, but that's not that cold.
Well, we can sort in
but
summer.
Yeah, definitely. I'm up for it. And I do it often. I go the whole way.
Yeah, because I've always wanted to try, that really people seriously that go into the Icepack, I mean, they don't jump, but they really go take a deep dive, and I've never tried that. So I don't want to do it by myself. So I'm happy you will.
You can even go with the flow. So the flow will take you further and then you walk back. But okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Wonderful. Well, okay. Guys, thank you so much. I want to now give our lovely audience the chance to ask questions. I know we've touched on a lot of topics, so this is your chance now. Is there any question you may have that you want to address to the panelists? I can take, say, 2 questions or so before we wrap it up. So then please just unmute your phone and just ask your question. Don't be shy. Anything you want to know, this is your chance to ask the panelists questions.
Question, Svetlana here.
Yes, Svetlana, please.
Obviously, you guys are doing pretty well in terms of getting up to speed and be active and ready when at 9 o'clock or whenever your business day starts. But my question to you is, how do you manage with this thing called alarm clock? So can you share some tips? How do you do you use an alarm clock? Do you use the snooze function? Do you use one alarm clock or 2 alarm clocks? And don't laugh, but there was a time when I started using 2 alarm clocks. obviously not, the first one was not doing a good job, meaning I was not doing a good job. And thanks to a friend of mine, I got immediately after the first week, I got rid of the second alarm clock, and I think I made the right decision. So in short, how do you manage with this damn thing called alarm clock? Thank you.
Svetan, who do you want to address the question to? Anyone in particular?
Yeah, actually, Laurel sounded pretty confident about the daily routine, so I'm directing my question to Laurel. Thank you.
Sure. So during the pandemic, I actually had trouble sleeping, which I didn't have before. So I never used to need an alarm clock. And then I did because I was waking up having nightmares about my business and everything. And so then I realized it was the quality of my sleep. Even if I was, in bed for 8 hours, I wasn't getting getting quality sleep. And then that's why I couldn't wake up. And so for me, what really changed it was doing, again, I love my 5-minute meditations, but a 5-minute meditation in bed just to really calm my nervous system. So then I would go to sleep right away and have a really deep sleep. And now I'm back. I still set my alarm clock, to be honest, just to be safe, but I usually wake up an hour and a half before my alarm clock easily. But I only do it when I get a really good sleep. And so if I am stressed, I really need that 5 minutes to really calm my nervous system so I get that really good quality sleep.
Might I add something just because I think it's interesting because it goes directly against what Laurel said earlier and what I think is otherwise good advice. What I do after my alarm clock rings is I check my phone because it's blue light. It's the same thing that prevents you from falling asleep in the evening. It helps you wake up in the morning. So I take my phone, I check social media, I check WhatsApp, I check the news, and it does help. It does help wake you up.
Thank you, guys.
May I also add, actually, because mine is different as well. I use only one alarm, and I have a rule that I never snooze. So that way I kind of know that, hey, I have to get up or that's it, or I will sleep. And then also one of the tip, maybe, because this is something I use, I know when I had troubles waking up, is I put my phone somewhere a bit far away so that I need to get up and pick it up and actually turn it off, because this is the way for you to actually get out of bed.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You all have like different insights. I really appreciate that you all gave your opinion. Now, we have one very last question we can ask before we wrap it up. Is there anything else you guys in the audience want to know? You're curious about? This is your chance.
I have a question.
Please, Leonor.
Yeah. So a lot of you guys talked about having a morning routine and all the things, you do to wake up. How about an evening routine? I'm curious if any of you have a way to wind down, because how Laurel was talking about having issues with sleep. So I'm curious if any of you have anything like that. Maybe I'll start with Leila.
Yeah, so I have a, what's the word? Maybe an alarm or something that tells me that it's time to wind down. And this is the time when I stop looking at my phone. I put it away. I turn off my Wi-Fi and everything so that I don't get distracted or don't get any notifications. And this is the time when usually it's only about really not touching my phone and also reading. I love reading the fantasy books at night because this is something that calms me down and a way for me to forget about everything that happened during the day so that I can relax and sleep.
Leonor, did that answer your question?
Yes, yeah. Thank you, Leila.
Wonderful.
Do you have time for one more question?
Yes, I was just going to say we have one more. Is it Maria that asked? Mr.
Yeah,
right?
thank you.
Yes, Maria.
Okay, thank you very much for having time for another question. So, dear panelists, you told us that you established some routines which are have been patronizing you during your pandemic state. And now I was wondering, since the situation gets more normal now, whether you are still keeping your routines or for the future, or if you think that you won't need them anymore as long as we will have normal situation again. And since the routine seemed very, nicely established with Laurel, I want to start with her first.
Sure, great question. That is really insightful. Again, I think it depends on each person. For myself, I will always have a routine. I've had a morning routine for probably 10, 12 years. It changes a little bit over time, but there's always the key elements. But one thing I think I need to do, probably all of us, because it's been such a stressful year, is I want to relax a little bit. So for example, usually I stop working at 6. I actually want to stop working at 4 p.m. I want to take off Wednesdays and go hiking. So I think it's after such a stressful year, we kind of need to give ourselves a break, and we've all had different kinds of stress from the pandemic. So I think routines are really important, but I think it's even more important at this point to build more relaxation and just time to enjoy life into our routines.
Thank you. And Layla, how do you think about that? Because it sounded like your routines were especially focused on the Corona pandemic.
Yes, so for me right now, I'm also thinking about how it would change in case we would need to, for example, go back to the office, because at the moment, I think during this year, I got so into the routines that I have changed, that this is something that right now is very dear to me, that I wouldn't be able to completely, let's say, go back to the previous state. I know that right now, for example, in my company, we will definitely have the flexible working environment. And so I'm looking forward to finding out also, because I would like to still work from home, but I would maybe still think that during some of the days, I would still like to go to the office just to interact with people as well. But yeah, that's why for me, it would be still important to actually keep the routines that I have established during this time.
Thank you. And last but not least, do you think you will keep your routine with taking the bike instead of the tube?
Thanks for the question. I hope so. I am still I am still having this routine. I still don't have the ticket, and I have grown to like using the bike even more. So I think so, and I hope so.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Blaž. Now, as time is running up, I would like to use this last opportunity and give all of our speakers the opportunity, or panelists, to leave some final words for the audience. Blaž, do we want to start? Some last thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was a very interesting year, and there could be longer discussions on how the world will change and how working will change. I think about big topics like, will people move out of cities more? Will there be more remote work, which I think definitely will be. I guess I would just say I think it's a good development that that people will have more flexibility to work either in office or remotely, maybe in a hybrid way. I think it's a good development, and I think employers have also seen that people will still do the work even if they work from home.
I totally agree. Yeah, it's all going to be more like results based rather than, you know, the time you need to complete a task. Thank you. Laurel, any final words from your side?
Just quickly, I think it's to be kind to ourselves. Because, you know, now that we can start to be social again, I don't know about any of you, I'm personally feeling really overwhelmed in large crowds because I haven't been around people, you know, in so long, probably like a lot of us. And so it's just, you know, we're in the situation, all of a sudden our lives changed overnight, but we didn't have any choice over that, but we do have a choice of how we so-called like re-enter society. So to do that in a way that makes sense, maybe it's not seeing friends every day, maybe it's just seeing a friend every week, whatever works for you, but just to kind of give yourself permission to be gradual and to realize it's okay, I'm on whatever schedule I'm on, just to kind of re-enter whatever the new normal will look like.
Wonderful. Thank you, Laurel. Leila.
Yeah, I agree with what has been said. And I think that this year really showed all of us that we can adapt, that we can stay flexible. And really, I think, as Blaž said, change also the mindset, I hope, of many employers as well, seeing how to adapt right now to the new environment.
Thank you so much. And I just want to wrap it up and also say that, you know, we have been challenged in the past year and we will continue to be challenged. So let's try to look into the future with some positive mindset and trying to focus on the right skills rather than distracting ourselves with everything that is happening around us. Let's make sure that we all stay focused on ourselves, on how we can get the work done and how we feel, because if we make our own health a priority, we will be able to, you know, get more energy and more focus and get the work done we need and adapt to this environment without feeling stressed out or burned out. So with that, I want to wrap it up. I want to thank my lovely panelists, Leila, Laurel, and Blaž, for joining me today for this amazing discussion. And also want to thanks to all of you in the audience for listening, for asking questions. And with that, I wish all of you a wonderful rest of your evening. And I turn it back to our Toastmaster of the evening, Alejandra.
Thank you, Daniela.